Hello, 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 ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to our webinar series, The Power of Sourcing. And today is already our 8th episode. Time flies when you're having fun. If you're dialing in live today, either via LinkedIn or via YouTube, type in the chat where are you from, share your LinkedIn contacts, and if you have any questions or comments, type them in the chat. There's a slight delay on our end, but we try to answer them while you ask them, or we save your questions until the end of the webinar. Now, my name is Adrian Kolf, and I am the co-founder and CEO of Matcher, co-founder of Pantala, and I am your co-host today, because in the back end, we have Andrew and Victor managing everything and making sure that everything runs smoothly. Now, before I announce our 8th speaker, let me tell you a little bit more of what we do with Matcher. Because with Matcher, we provide embedded talent teams for fast-growing companies and startups. So our sources and recruiters work fully embedded and dedicated for companies like TikTok and Booking, Stride, Revolut, Miro, and Grammarly, and many other companies that you probably have never heard of. So if you or you know anyone that could use some extra hiring support, even if it's just for only a month, let us know, because we would love to get in touch with you. Now, our 8th speaker is Craig Hawkins, and I'm very excited to welcome him on stage today. Hey, Greg, so good to see you.
Hey, how's it going?
I am so glad. I'm so glad that you're here. And guys, let me tell you a cool story about Craig. So when I started Matcher close to 4 years ago, I knew nothing about sourcing. So I just started to Google and look around and watch YouTube. And that's where I stumbled on Craig, who had amazing videos about very technical aspects around sourcing. But literally anything that you can think of, Craig has made a video about it. So Craig, now having you for the first time on our webinar series, I finally felt confident enough after 4 years to reach out to you and ask, Craig, will you be one of our guests today?
Yeah, well, I really appreciate it. I'm really honored to be here. And yeah, I get a little nerdy with the videos. So I have lost count at how many I've done. But I was just looking at it. It's been 5 years since I created the YouTube channel. And TikTok is crazy. I get even more views on TikTok than I ever do on YouTube. So just stuff that's happening with video and just recruiting tech right now is just mind blowing. I mean, if I had this stuff 5 years ago, I mean, it'd just be awesome. But yeah, just it's really bridging the gap between programmer and recruiting recruiters.
Yeah.
So
No, it truly is. And honestly, again, for anyone out there, because Craig started publishing all this content, a lot of people start to notice Craig. And honestly, that was also the immediate reason why we thought this year we hope to get Craig on our webinar series. One thing, so Craig's internet completely died right before we were supposed to start the webinar.
Of course.
So, of course. But luckily, we've dealt with these situations before. So actually, we are going to run the presentations on our end. So if it looks a little bit like next slide, then you understand why that is happening. If you have any questions, type them in the chat. Craig, the floor is yours.
Great. So, hi, everybody. So, really glad to be here again. And, what I'm going to be going over is really a full spectrum of different tools and strategies that I use. But before I get started on all that, I think especially in this world we are in right now, you've got to think about things from the job seeker's perspective. I mean, really, it's about what are job seekers looking for? There's many that have been laid off the last couple of months, especially in tech. So, I always think about from a candidate's perspective, what they're thinking, what they're looking for. And that's going to help me later on. So I mean, people want different stuff than they wanted 3 years ago. They want to be heard. They want to be understood. They want to be given a chance. And that goes back into the layoffs, to be valued. They want to be communicated with. So whether it's a yes or no on a job, just letting them know where they are. Are they in the process of being reviewed? Are there delays? Is something put on hold? Or, are they being considered for multiple positions? Really, when I look at a candidate or when I'm helping a candidate, I look and see how is the best way for them to fit into an organization. What are the different options? What are the different groups that I can send them to? So if I talk to a cybersecurity person and I find out that they have a real passion for threat hunting, for example, even though I might be talking to them about a SOC position, well, those two different things correlate. So why not send them for both and see if you can give them a couple options? It's a much better way of thinking about it. The other thing is, life happens. There's a lot of things going on in people's personal lives, especially right now in and around being laid off. There's a lot of layoffs going on. There's a lot of uncertainty, and people are feeling like a number. Well, if you call somebody and have a human conversation with them and just talk to them about what's going on in their world and what they're considering, they're going to remember you. They're going to remember you. So when you engage them or re-engage them later, you'll have made a difference in their lives, and they'll refer people to you. So if you want to move to the next one, but what we shouldn't do, and I use this picture because it's a perfect representation. We want to be as inclusive as possible. We want to make sure we're not holding our candidates captive, especially right now. You know, um, you know, what I do, I always look at what's the right target audience, what's the right target, what are the right skill sets, what certifications, licenses can I focus on, and my messaging. I mean, it's when I reach out to somebody, it's like I'm talking to them on the phone. I'm calling out them on the phone with whatever conversation I might have. So be human when you're reaching out. It makes a huge difference. You want to automate as much as you can, but not over automate. A lot of people are using chat GPT and things like that for things like revamping job specs and things like that. I do that too. But I also make sure that the content I'm putting in there is stuff I've created. Okay. If you are terrible at messaging and it's something that's a barrier, yeah, absolutely use chat GPT and see if that helps. That's one example. But, as far as over automating, as far as reaching out to a wide variety of people and really not pinpointing your target audience, that could be detrimental because now you're answering all these emails or responding to all these calls, and they may not be a fit for what you're looking for. Again, don't hold job seekers captive. I always think about sourcing and recruiting as triage. When you go into a hospital, you talk to a triage nurse. She or he tells you, what specialist to go to. Well, I'm that person. I'm that person who knows all the jobs, what I'm looking for, what my team is looking for, what my org is looking for, and how I can be as inclusive as possible and find a pathway inside our organization, especially now when it's much needed out there in the world. And this is a global thing. I mean, it's not just in the U.S. or in the U.K. I mean, it's going on all over the world. I've looked at layoffs, FYI. I'm seeing it happen everywhere. So, and again, it goes back to messaging. Free sites are cool, but if you stink at engagement, it's not going to help the bottom line. Okay. I always think about helping, about providing some sense of hope, and of course being human. And there's ways you can hack your post and your messages too. For example, I mean, if you use videos or GIFs, I use that in my messaging. I get better response rates. A lot of the social media platforms nowadays, especially like LinkedIn, they're geared towards putting video content out there first. So if you are putting a post about a job or you're reaching out to job seekers or anything like that, use a video when you can. Tag people, tag as many people as you can, tag people on your team, tag hiring managers, but ask them first. You don't get in trouble there. And make sure to be engaged and active. Like, comment on things. That's how social media works. It always it's always putting video content first. If you can't find a video, put a picture up. It'll do better. It'll get you more views. And again, it'll make more impressions and really have people come to you about certain opportunities that you're looking for. Okay. So here's some cringe-worthy examples, and I got Alice on here because she's making the perfect face when I get one of these. When you get some of these examples, and it might be kind of hard to see, but this is one reach out to me. Okay, this was a couple years ago, but I always use these as an example because look how long this thing is. Okay, that's a 2-page. There's actually a 3-pager for one job, and really, it just don't do this. Don't copy and paste the job description. And you can tell that it's a templated message. Oftentimes they'll put the wrong name on it or parse the wrong name. It's not very personalized. It's very informal. And it just makes me cringe a little bit. So please don't do this. If you can see this, and I know that the time might be strong or small, when you look at my messaging, I'm asking for a conversation. I'm not asking specifically for, hey, I've got this job and that sort of thing. The one on the right is one of my more long-winded ones. I think I was sending that during COVID. There's a lot of explanation that I needed to do, but it's geared and made in a humanistic way. I have links on the left side. I have links. I have information about our job. I really talk about what it is that we're doing, what our challenges are, and that really I'm not pitching a job. I'm looking for a conversation. And really, I get a lot of comments about some of the outreach that I do. Like recently, I feel like I had an 80% response rate for a lot of the outreach that I do. I'm talking about having one group of messages going out and getting such a response rate that I can schedule people through the next week. That's the kind of market that I'm dealing with right now in tech. Okay. So yeah, I have a bunch of software architects, enterprise software architects that I'm looking to put on my schedule. I literally reached out to these folks on Monday. It's insane how many people are looking for jobs right now. So like I said, and use different variations. That's the thing, is I have a short and sweet message. I have a long-winded message. I have very specific niche type of wording that I use a lot of times. But these are a couple of examples. And honestly, this would be the same thing that I would say on the phone. That's a great way to look at it. So let's go to the next one. Okay, I want to talk about these all-in-one sourcing platforms. Most people have heard about HireEasy and Seekout. There's also Human Predictions, Amazing Hiring. I have not used it, but I've heard a huge amount of buzz around it working on a global type of environment. So if you're looking for a global all-in-one tool, definitely take a look at Amazing Hiring. A lot of my sourcing friends really like it. HireEasy, Seekout. If you're looking for a headhunting type of function, you need at least one of these, okay? Because these platforms, you can search multiple sites like LinkedIn, GitHub. They even have some science websites on there too, like the publication sites I used to talk about when I would hunt scientists and things like that. So everything from biotechnology to Behance. They incorporate a lot of searches in and around that. The reason I like Seekout is because they have a ranking system based on GitHub repos. So you can look for another caliber of programmer. But like both HireEasy, Seekout, and I believe Amazing Hiring, they go across different industries, including healthcare. So if you haven't demoed those, definitely check those out. Another one that's coming to my mind right now is Sourcewell, but I think I talk about that a little bit when I talk about drip campaigns. But definitely demo these if you're not using this. If you're a new organization or a smaller organization, you haven't tapped into this, at least get a seat here. I think this, Indeed and LinkedIn Recruiter are definitely something that every sourcer should have to be successful at their job nowadays. So let's all go on to the next one. So, I come to this page and it simply says profile. Okay. I was simply looking for profiles, and I do this as for a point because I'm a visual learner. And if you just type in profile, you get all these different profile sites. So why do I do this? Because there's so much out there on the internet right now that you may not realize is out there. So like going out and searching for people is much easier than it was 10 years ago because everybody puts their stuff on the internet, right? So let's move on. But there's also specific ways to identify those type of pipelines. Like, for example, Behance, I talked about Behance. That's a great place to find creatives. So if you're looking for graphic artists or like a graphic artist or any kind of creative directors or any kind of art direction, that's like their whole portfolio. I mean, I remember there's a Disney artist that my wife was following. I went to their Behance page and I found a whole lot more illustrations and works that they did because that was their whole portfolio on there. And you can really click into those different. I wish I could show you it because it's much prettier than a resume. Let me put it that way. Okay, so Behance is one example. GitHub obviously is a different example for tech. Everybody who codes, a lot of them will put their stuff up on GitHub or in some of these IT repositories. So you can go in there, dig in there, see their code, see what hooks they have, see who's helping them out with the code, things like that. That's where I believe a lot of the ChatGPT coding comes from. It's pulling from GitHub, but I'm not a programmer. I don't know for sure, but I just know that this stuff is out there for anybody to go in and look at. So what's behind that is you can see what the programmer is part of, what their interests are. If they put a lot of stuff, if they comment on a lot of like JavaScript stuff or Angular or React type stuff, you know that they're going to be interested in front end engineering, right? So that taking that and following the breadcrumbs to like their user profile. Well, 50% of everybody on GitHub has their email address out there. So all you got to do to access that is register, or not register, but put in your screen name and look via signed in, and you can find their email. That's how a lot of the email permutators find the information too. On my YouTube channel, I talk a lot about site searches. The main two operators that I use for any kind of Boolean string is site colon and in URL colon. Basically, what site means is, hey, so Google, look specifically on this site for this type of stuff. In URL is look specifically in this URL for this type of stuff. And those are the main two things that I use on the front of any kind of Boolean string or any kind of search that I do. And it gets a lot of great results. So, for example, I don't think I have an example here. No, I don't have an example here, but I have lots of examples on my videos. I do this quite a bit. There's other ways to identify pipelines, programmable search engines, for example. I've built several PSCs, CSEs to search things like Google, search things like Google Scholar, and I think I built one for Behance actually. So there's a lot that you can utilize custom search engines for, and most likely there's somebody out there that has built one. I've actually built a programmable search engine specifically to look through TikTok because there's not really a really great way to search TikTok videos for user information. So I have one of those out there. I believe I made a video on it or a TikTok on it, but I will try to find that so I can add that to the chat. Or I can add that in a post when I reference this. Okay. There's all kinds of external search sites as well. For example, if you don't have access to Seek Out, you can use a site called Octohunt. Octohunt is something that you can use to search GitHub. That also does kind of the ranking thing as far as how many contributions they have. how many repositories they've commented on, how active they are in the repo type of world. It gives you a different skill set. Okay. What I also like about OctaHunt is you have a lot of those users that you may be able to see there have personal websites. So when you see a personal website or a personal portfolio website, you know that you're going to be able to access their content information. And this is something that I've used all over the globe. It's not something specific to the US because programmers are everywhere. Okay. So literally you can put in, for example, Ireland. If you want to look in Ireland, you can find people there. And they'll either have their GitHub profile, which again, 50% of every GitHub profile has their email address on it, or they have a personal website, which is the best of both worlds, because if they have a personal website, it's 95% chance that they're going to have some sort of contact information there for you to contact them directly. And yeah, OctaHunt, there's other things like Zoom Info. There's other things like Contact Out. There's lots of resources out there. A lot of times you just Google stuff. I just Google stuff and find this type of stuff. And there's other ways you can manipulate URLs by using that site colon and in URL. That's a great way to do more URL based sourcing. Sometimes if you change a keyword and a hashtag, you'll get a different target. So I think that's, yeah. So there's lots of examples of that on my YouTube channel and TikTok channel as well. And like I said, I talk about a lot of stuff, and I get really nerdy with some of those live streams. So it's really worth watching because I go over several of these examples within like one live stream. That's one of the reasons I wanted to do it that way. Okay, let's move on. And if anybody has seen my videos, they know that I'm a huge scraping nerd. I like pulling data from different places. I like utilizing technology to really pipeline and make a series of pipelines for big projects. So there are several scraping tools out there that, and I remember like talking to Aaron Lentz all those years ago about Kamano. That was the scraping tool to use back then. I think it was like 5 to 7 years ago or something like that. Well, there's a lot more than there used to be. Okay. Instant Data Scraper, if you haven't used a web scraper, is the one to start with. So the reason I do data scraping is because if I'm on a website and I want a list of people, names, job titles, contact information, this allows me to do that sort of thing. It allows me to pull the information in and into a CSV file or an Excel spreadsheet, manipulate it the way that I want so I can get it into my CRM Avature. And what the goal of all that is to build drip campaigns around this. We have done this with some of the layoff lists on Layoff FYI. And yeah, literally, we have built layoff campaigns to where we're targeting people that have been recently laid off, inviting them to this virtual event that we're having next week. So very interested to see what happens with that. But that's the end goal. Why I scrape is because I could pull this information in several hundred people at a time and then combine it into a compile list to help out more people. So it's really recruiting at scale in a very targeted way. So it gets tricky. But Instant Data Scraper, it's got like a little Pokemon ball icon that people really love. It's a Chrome extension, and it does a lot of it automatically for you. You don't have to build anything. You just run it, and a lot of times it's hit or miss. The other thing is Data Miner. That is probably my second go-to. And yeah, Data Miner is great. It's one of my favorites, okay? Because it does allow customization. It does allow you to automate a lot of things. I have built crawlers with this thing. I think I'm one of the only ones that's doing it like this, but you can build in stuff like pagination. But I really like the crawling feature because I could pull several lists at a time and then automate it to pull more information on that list. So as far as like a click in an option into a profile site to get more information, extract more information, it just adds another layer. Okay, so Data Miner is great for that. Web Scraper is something that Brett Feig had told me about, as well as Any Picker. We're kind of scraper nerds, scraper bros. Um, Again, I really like Web Scraper for that same reason, but I'm kind of rusty on on how to build those. What do they call them? Um, they're I can't remember what they call them, but it's kind of like a recipe at Data Miner. So they're different sitemaps. That's what they call them in Web Scraper. You build sitemaps, and this adds a lot of customization. But again, you have to take the time to learn the tool. And if you're very new to data scraping or web scraping, instant data scraper is the way to go to kind of build into that skill set. Any Picker is another one that Brett had mentioned, um, and I think it is a pay tool, but again, it's another alternative that you can take a look at. You can get into scripting, and I'm getting into more of that with using ChatGPT. So if you're not familiar with programming and things like that, that helps bridge the gap between that. So if you're not using ChatGPT for something, you should definitely take a look at it, because it's helped me with some of the job specs that we don't know what to name, for example. So you can add and the new version, you could ask this thing anything, and it'll give you a list of instructions. So it's great for that if you're not familiar on how to do a process. So example, like if I wanted to up my YouTube video views, I can ask ChatGPT that, and it'll give me a list of ways to do that. And a lot of people forget to look for this, and a lot of people forget about this. But there are some websites out there that you can download a whole spreadsheet for, or download to CSV. If you see a download to CSV button, or if you see like a little download button, click it and see what happens. Because, for example, the Texas Board of Engineering, I was able to download like a 70,000 person spreadsheet. I didn't have to pay anything for it, and it had. And I've seen this in like listservs. I could download an entire email list from listservs before. I think there was one in the UK that I found, but of course did video on it. But there's that functionality out there. If you're using something like Google Patents, it has a built-in capability to download an Excel file. So if I'm looking for something in biotechnology, or something on the medical side, or anything that involves any kind of innovation, manufacturing, aerodynamics, aerospace, that's a great way to find people too. So download the CSV, download the Excel spreadsheet, and it'll also list the names of the inventors and the people that worked on the project. So you've got whole teams of people, and so you don't have to scrape it because it's automatically built in. And if all else fails, just copy and paste the information and see if you can put it into a spreadsheet, because most of those websites that are out there have some sort of format, and you can work with it. The main thing is that you've got your pipeline, you've got your list of contacts, and you can work through them. And again, lots of examples on the website, lots of examples out there. But I've got lots of everything that I talk about. I pretty much have done at least one video on. Okay, let's go on. And another way to find a question I get a lot about is, okay, so I have their name, I have their LinkedIn profile, but I don't know what their contact information is. And I already sent them a LinkedIn message, but I haven't heard anything. Well, if you Google the word OSINT, OSINT, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for OSINT tools, and even SOSINT tools in and around social media nowadays. Because there's a lot of tools out there people don't know about. I mean, there's like start me pages and list of these different tools that are out there. You just have to Google it. But one example is Canada 411. I was looking for phone numbers in Canada, and that's a resource that is a people finder like US Phone Book in the US, but they have a Canada version. So, and Free People Search is another people finder. Radarus is another one, and a lot of those, they work globally. They U.S. Phone Book mainly works is mainly a U.S. based tool, so I wanted to provide some examples outside of that too. But if you look at OSINT, and put in your country, there's most likely some sort of Start Me page that has these resources. It can be going down a rabbit hole, because I was on the Canadian OSINT page the other day, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many to go through. But sometimes you've got to trial and error them and make sure that they're finding what you're looking for. But again, there's an OSINT group that I'm part of on Facebook. That's where I get most of these tips. Some other things you can use, Swordfish. It is something that I've trialed before. And what I really liked about that is that it doesn't just find the email and contact number from LinkedIn, which is what most of these tools are using to find the information. It pulls from Facebook and Twitter too. So you can see how that's an advantage if companies aren't using Facebook and Twitter. Like, there's so many people on Facebook and Twitter and TikTok, you don't even know. And again, I talked about this previously. Personal websites, Instagram. People forget about Instagram. I forget about Instagram. I always forget about my Instagram video page. I always forget to post stuff there. But there's people, on there, like Pinterest. If you can find somebody's portfolio site, or you can find somebody's blog, or you can find somebody's personal website, you're going to be able to uncover the information. So that's why I always get excited when I see a personal website. I'm like, oh, I'm going to be able to get their email. I'm going to be able to get their phone number, and there's additional social profile websites out there. I would highly suggest you take a look at WebMe and you.com as if you're looking for something in and around somebody who has a social footprint. If you've put my name in there in WebMe, for example, you'll find a lot of my YouTube channels. You might find the keyboardist for the cars too. There's another Greg Hawks out there. But yeah, you.com is something that Rodney Bradshaw actually told me about. And again, it's another alternative way to find the full picture on people. Okay. And again, OSINT as a mindset is something that I always have. What is something that I can use to uncover more information about an individual, to really see their true story, their full story? Well, GitHub's an example of that. And look, I do have a site search on this presentation, sitegithub.com, in URL mail map. I was just goofing around one day, and this is an example of pulling information off of a repo. And it's hard to see, but there is a huge list of emails there that I have everybody's email in the repo. And I'm like, oh, gosh, that's great for me, because I can email all those people and see if they're looking for jobs. For something like that, if there's a layoff list built like that, that'll be even better, So, but that is one example of how just digging around and just randomly trying some different things, it can lead to a whole list of people, a whole list of names. I did something similar with Meetup for I think it was a Dublin group in Ireland when I was looking for a technologist in Ireland, and one of the requirements of the Meetup group is that you add your email. So not only did I have all the members list, I had 72 emails of everybody in that group specific to that area, and I was able to email all of them. Okay, so you never know what you might find. That's the key to all this. And let's go to another example. Again, OSINT as a mindset. Oh man, I forgot that I put this in here. This was one of my favorite searches, because this was me farting around with listservs. Okay, and as you can see, this was a couple years ago, but a lot of these listservs are recent, like 2023 recent, and you can uncover a lot here. This is another example. Just putting in listserv into a search string can sometimes lead you into the rabbit hole, into something that's really effective as finding not only experts in a realm, but also their email addresses, more clues about the group. And I didn't have to pay anything for this, so it's free. So again, another example, another great surprise. as sometimes really what I do is I try to take at least 30 minutes every week and just randomly look for stuff based around my jobs, and it's almost always I find something I haven't found before. So really use OSINT as a mindset, and even social media now. Social media, it's OSINT. That's something that's becoming much more relevant in the digital age that we live in right now. Okay. And so one of the things that we do at M&T Bank is we recruit at scale, and it's not just about engagement, it's about re-engagement. So we use everything we possibly can. Avature, which is our CRM, is not the best for drip campaigning, but we're working on getting integrations. You can see my integrations. That's a joke, boss. Okay, my boss is watching. Jim, I've trialed Jim in Sourcewell. They are great. As far as building out drip campaigns and re-engagement campaigns, you can schedule the messages to go out. The tracking in Sourcewell is just mind-boggling, but those are high price tag types of platforms. Text Recruit, I do have access to, and I use for text campaigns. It's also got a drip process, so you can build a drip tech campaign, or a drip text campaign. Sorry, I'm stumbling on words today. But that's great because you can schedule the text to go out, and I get a lot of immediate responses when we do these text campaigns. Woodpecker is another one that my friend Sean Hervey, fellow tech talker, shout out. He told me about that I'm working on getting a free trial for. It's going to be a less costly alternative, but I'm interested to see some more things about that because he had told me about it and asked me if I had used it. I'm like, I haven't heard of that, but I'll take a look and see. And again, Seek Out and Hire Easy, they have some of this messaging built in. Again, we're trying to work on integrating both Seek Out and Hire Easy in our CRM, but it's a work in progress. All right, so next one. Okay, and I do want to talk about virtual sites, virtual word sites as far as conferences and things like that go, because these are still around and they might be around for a while. Okay, but for example, like this virtual site Hopin, that's where a lot of the different recruiting and tech-based conferences were on when COVID was running around. These are still around. Virtual events are still around. In fact, my company is doing a virtual event next week for engineers. So these are definitely going to be around for a while. So definitely tap into these as you can, because you can find a list of candidates. You can pull more information. I have scraped candidates off of this before, Jobseekers, in and around non-career events, but more learning events, and build campaigns around it. So you can do some pretty amazing things with just a list of names with Phantom Buster. That's all I got to say. And I did a video on that one too. TikTok, for those non-believers, TikTok is super active. I have used TikTok to not only recruit recruiters, but engineers. And I always get more views on my TikTok videos than I ever did on my YouTube videos, which is just insane. It's just a super active platform. I don't think anybody doesn't use TikTok. Okay. And again, video and streaming technology has advanced in a much better way than it ever has before. I mean, there's several different streaming platforms you can be part of and utilize, and tech is right there with it. And just how we have consumed information has changed. Like it used to be 2-minute to 5-minute video was what people would watch. Now it's like 30 seconds to a minute. You've got a couple seconds to hook somebody and get them interested in whatever you're talking about. And that hasn't changed. That's still going on today. People are more crazy about TikTok than they ever have about YouTube. Okay. And again, the virtual conference platforms, they're out there. Hopin is one of them. I've pulled several lists in conferences from this type of platform. I think Brazen is another one, but that's locked behind a paywall. You can register for these virtual events if you want to learn more and connect with people, especially if you're a job seeker. Definitely do that. I think there's a HRTX conference going on right now. So if you're looking to network and look for a job, you might want to check that out, for example. And and like a lot of these virtual conferences are free or lower cost. Okay, so definitely check those out. And again, engage, comment, network, see if there's anybody hiring. Any kind of recruiting type of event or sourcing type of event. There's most likely going to be some sort of company hiring and looking for recruiters and sourcers. So definitely be on the lookout for that. And I learned about most of these on Facebook, to be honest. And you can always learn more things along the way. I mean, I try to go to cybersecurity conferences a lot so I can learn some more OSINT tools. And I've really enjoyed recruiting cybersecurity people because we use the same tools. We use them for different things. But when I start talking about OSINT stuff, kind of go on a tangent and get kind of nerdy with this type of stuff. I think that might be, oh no, what happened to that slide? So there's lots of other places to search, and you can't really tell, but there's a ton of different places. I've talked about some of these LinkedIn groups, forums, Slack groups, TikTok, FEC.gov is more of a US site. But there's some examples of Boolean strings here that target specific resumes, Google Patents, Google Scholar, publication sites, membership sites. People forget about all these. Okay, so when my brain thinks about any kind of search that I'm doing, it automatically goes out to a web to all these other places and all these other areas. Where else are these people going to be? Let's go on to the next one. And again, if you're more interested in scrapers and automation, I have a ton of videos around all this. And like I said, anything I have pretty much talked about today or that you see on these slides, I've done a video on. So one of the things that I really like, that I'm really experimenting with, is more like the automation piece with Zapier, app combiners like If Then Then That, Phantom Buster. Done some pretty cool automation type of stuff with those. And yeah, I know Shelly Steckerl has used Power Automate on a lot of his videos too. So yeah, see, as you can tell, there's a ton of stuff that's out there, but you've got to find the best way to harness it and streamline your own processes, because the overall goal is finding job seekers and helping people find jobs, right? So, and I think that's probably towards the end of the slides or the last slide. I don't know. Is that the last slide? Yeah, that's the last slide. Yeah, it seems that I'm ready to kick some ass with a cowboy hat. But, and again, I've built things to help people. When I was getting into sourcing, I didn't really find a lot of resources out there. So that's why I started making videos. That's why I started writing blogs. There's mainly like 3 sites you could go to, and that wasn't enough for people. So, but yeah, that's all I have. So as far as the slide deck goes, and if you are interested in any more of this, definitely go to the YouTube channel. I will also try to do a live stream going over some of this as well, and I'll tag match HR on it too. So because I owe you guys some live demos.
Craig, it's a wrap. Without internet, you've done it. Without breaking.
Yeah. I did my best.
You definitely did. You definitely did. And oh my goodness, so much value, so many interesting tools. Some of them I never even heard of. Craig, question from my side. So for audience, right? Because there's a lot out there, right? How do you kind of like structure your work in terms of these are kind of like fun tools like play around versus the ones that you really use on a day-to-day basis?
Well, it depends on the project and what I'm trying to do. So for example, for a lot of the data scraping, I'm targeting like a specific audience. I'll say like, software engineers. Well, I'll go to a software engineering conference, a virtual conference, and pull a list from that conference and try to extract more information on it. So I think about it more like workflows. What is the main goal? What's the main outcome that I'm trying to do? Because the main thing that I'm trying to do is get whatever pipeline I'm working into my CRM so I could run a drip campaign or some sort of campaign with it. So you have to kind of think about it holistically. And so, the websites are so different. Like some some of these websites will give you contact information, will give you social links, will give you a bio and things like that. And if you go to some place like Zoom Info, you have limited amount of information. So you may not have an email, you may not have a specific company, for example. So you have to kind of connect the dots. So I take it a case by case basis, but the overall goal is always to try to get whatever pipeline I'm working, whatever pipeline I found, into some sort of data list that I can work with. Because the alternative is entering these people one at a time, and that's just a waste of my time. I hate data entry.
Yeah.
I can't stay. That's why I learned scraping.
Is there anyone in the world that says,
So,
data entry, let's go?
Well, yeah. I mean, we used to have to track that stuff individually. I remember when I was doing onboarding for at a contract, we had a 126 column spreadsheet that we'd have to enter information in. And I'm like, I'm never doing this again. I will learn how to scrape stuff and shortcut than filling out all that information one at a time. There's always a better way.
That sounds ludicrous. Hey, Craig, to your example, right? So you go to a virtual conference, you scrape the people that are attending. So let me go through that kind of like step by step, and maybe I'm setting you a little bit on the spot on this particular example. But what would you then use to scrape attendees from an online conference? Like which scraper would you then go to?
It depends on the conference. For Hopin, I have created data miner recipes specifically for that. So you can do that, and then for example, a lot of times they don't have a lot of information. You might get like job title and maybe name. So that's not a lot of information to go with. So, but for I had taken this for a recent conference. Let me try to remember the name of it. I think it was ONIG. It might have been ONIG or I think it was a data engineering conference. Okay, so I got a list of like 700 names in some job titles. Well, that's not a whole lot to go on. Okay, so I used this tool called Phantom Buster that has this workflow already built to where you can program this to look up everybody on LinkedIn through the list. And so I was able to harness that to get the 700 LinkedIn profiles, right? So I have names and LinkedIn profiles now, right? Yeah. So you can then use another tool. You can plug it into Seekout and use that because they pull a lot of information from LinkedIn to further enrich your list and get named, like not only names, LinkedIn profiles, companies, job titles. You can get where they're living. You can get contact information like emails and phone numbers and skill sets, because it pulls all this information from LinkedIn and GitHub to enrich. And really the LinkedIn profile is the key, because a lot of these tools like Seekout, HireUZ, I don't know if Amazing Hiring, they pull LinkedIn profiles first. So that's where most of the data comes from. And then they permutate and they aggregate information from that. So that was really the key, because that way I plugged it into Seekout and I was able to get full profiles. I was able to see everything that these people did and where they were located and if they were viable. So it's about connecting the breadcrumbs, even if it doesn't really make sense at first. And it really depends on the conference. There have been conferences that I've gone to, virtual conferences, and they have all that information. They have their names, their emails, their job titles, full profiles, and all I would have to do is use data miner to build a recipe and scrape the list. Yeah. So, but it depends on how it's structured. It depends on what platform they're using, and it depends on what's on every profile site.
Yeah. So, and then you would use the enrichment to then filter out false positives?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so Hopin, I was usually looking for software engineers or architects or something like that. So, I mean, I would already try to pre-select those people first before putting them into Seekout. I would try to shortlist them as much as possible. And with a LinkedIn profile, okay, this is a little bit of URL nerdiness. with a LinkedIn profile, you can see where the person is. By the way, their LinkedIn is structured. So we were looking for people mainly in Canada and the US. So anybody with like anybody in France would have like an FR in their URL. Okay. Not many people look at that. But next time you're on LinkedIn and you're looking at a global profile, look at the URL and you'll see like FR means France.
Yeah.
And so I would just do some Excel sorting, delete, and reach out to people in Canada and the US. So
yeah.
because I want to keep the Canada people. I want to keep the people with CA, you know.
Yeah. No, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Hey, Craig, tell me about a story, like your best kind of like sourcing, like your hidden gem when you found a candidate that was unfindable and you were able to find this person, and then, or the most creative way, and then eventually that landed to a hire.
Oh man, there's been so many weird type of jobs that I've worked on in the past. I have to say like the
Yeah.
monorail engineer stuff, because monorail engineering, this was before they built this stuff in Seattle and where's the I think the one in Brazil. I think I was actually working for that company that was building one in Brazil. But they wanted somebody in the US, and monorail engineers haven't been around for like 30 years prior to this. Okay. And the only ones that worked were working at Disney. Well, I was able to find them a couple people and they were more like structural engineers, but it was really diving in and really understanding what kind of systems that a monorail ran on, like I would talk to a lot of people that did light rails, that did magnetic type of stuff, like worked on that type of stuff, but it was a lot of structural engineering. Okay, and that wasn't a realm that I have ever worked before, and so it was kind of interesting to be talking about this stuff. But again, you've got to really, understand what you're looking for. Really have a set of keywords that make sense um, before you start reaching out to people, and that just really, that's what I do. I always take a little bit of time, research what it is I'm looking for, what skills are the must-haves, and what this person really needs to be doing, what this person actually needs to be doing. Okay, and building my search around that. So basically, build out a grid, see what works, and then call people and talk to them, ask them what they've worked on, because you get a much better idea, a much better story of what they actually do. And I've shown several examples, like biotechnology. We hired a lot of biotechnologists, bioscientists, patent sites, publication sites. They give you such a better picture of what these people do. Like, like mass spec people. Like, I would get all their publications, and the publications have all these long, expansive, names on each publication. So, okay, he worked not only mass spec, but he did microbiology too. He worked with, RNA and that sort of thing. So it's not only knowing the keywords, it's also getting the full workload of what they do. And yeah, there's so many examples of that. Like if you go to Behance, you'll see their whole portfolio. If you go to GitHub, you'll see their whole portfolio, what they're working on. So it's not only that, it's about not only understanding the market that you're recruiting in, but also understanding from the job seeker side what they're doing, what makes this person a great candidate. And by seeing like the biotechnologists and the biotech folks with these patent sites and publication sites, I could see that they're innovators. Who doesn't want an innovator, right?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Craig, we're getting close to the hour. There was a lot of content and a lot of different tools that you mentioned in the slide deck. Is there any way that you can share the slide deck with our audience so they can have a look after the webinar?
Absolutely. And again, everything that I talk about, if you're in a rush, go to my TikTok channel. If you're not, and you want to just dig in and kind of see how I work, I have live streams up on my TikTok, on my YouTube channel. I do short videos on my YouTube channel as well. I built all this so that people have a place to go and learn, some of these techniques, because like nobody really ever told me what a site search did. I had to learn that on my own. A lot of this stuff was self-taught. And a lot of this stuff I learned from other peers that are doing the same sort of thing out there right now. But a lot of the tools that work in the US break outside of the US. So it's important to always have alternatives. It's always important to have options. And that's why I always try to spend a little bit of time and just try every week to learn a new resource or learn something new or use a different technique, because that all comes into play. How am I supposed to do my job when my internet goes out? Well, do it like this. You improvise, right? I can use my phone to look up people and stalk people, right? There you go.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Craig, thank you so much. It was an absolute honor and pleasure to have you on our webinar series. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for today. Next week will be our 9th webinar, and we're going to have Jenna Arono, who is almost like a last minute kind of like speaker, because we had a dropout. I'm very excited for her to speak. And she was a referral of Brian Fink, so then you know that it's going to be good. What the topic is going to be, we keep it for a surprise for just a little bit, but definitely come next week. If you haven't already, follow us on LinkedIn, follow our YouTube channel. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you all next week.